Good evening and welcome to Empowering Women. My name is Peter McAdams. I am an author. I'm also an accounting professor and I'm a certified life coach. I specialize in personal and small business finance and also fitness. And I help people reach their goals. And I'm so excited to be bringing this series to you and just kind of a little bit about it. The purpose of the series is for us as women to share our stories, our triumphs, our joys, our successes and failures, and just for the hopes of understanding that we are alike, like we have a lot in common. And it's more so of empowering women so that we can see that there's no need to suffer in silence. The stories or the circumstances that you're going through, we're all going through it. It's considered life, right? So there's no need for you to suffer in silence. Share your story. Tell people what you're going through in order to get help. So that's the premise of this series. And I'm so very excited to be talking tonight to my guest. This is going to be Niecy Johnson. Now, Niecy and I, we met about 5 years ago now. It's about 5 years ago. We were both in a business and we were assigned as accountability partners, and we literally hit it off immediately. Like our personalities, the way that we are as far as keeping each other accountable, like on a scale of 1 to 10, if you ever worked with a coach, they usually ask you, so on a scale of 1 to 10, what is the range of how soft do I need to be with you? 0 being very, very soft, and 10 meaning I can just tell you like it is without, sugarcoating it. Both Niecy and I are like 10 plus. So when we're giving each other feedback, no holds barred. We don't be caring about each other's feelings because we know that we care about each other and it is a hope for us to help each other. So we hit it off like immediately and became fast BFFs. And so I'm so excited to be talking to Niecy. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce you to Niecy. Hi, Niecy.
Hi, Pia. Hi, everybody.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. This has been one of my most, I've been wanting to do this forever with you. And you know that our title today is about finding inner strength. So I'm going to just let you start off there about, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so most people know me as Niecy. On Facebook, I'm Denise. That's my given name. Denise Johnson, and I'm a personal development coach. I'm also a Group X instructor, and I am a motivational speaker. And if that wasn't enough, I also work in a corporate job for a Fortune 500 company on some very large projects, very stressful. And I really enjoy helping people. As a personal development coach, what that really means is helping people reach their life goals, almost like a life coach. And I also have a focus on fitness with them because that's really my joy. And we'll talk a little bit about Do Your Joy later as we talk a little bit more. So
Okay.
That's about me.
So tell me a story about you finding inner strength. What does that mean to you?
So inner strength, the story, I have a couple of stories. One of the stories I think is very, very dear to my heart because I think it really speaks to a lot of women that I come in contact with. And we can really, as women, relate to this. A lot of us can relate to it. I think it was maybe about 10 years ago, and my son at that time was 16. And I was thinking about one day, it was raining, which it always does here in Seattle. And I was thinking, wow, in 2 years, he's going to go off to college. Mm-hmm. What am I going to do when he goes off to college? And when I thought about that in that split second, I kind of had not even a panic attack, but I was kind of like, yeah, like, what am I going to do? Right. And that led to, what am I doing now? So I started thinking a lot more about what I'm doing in my life. And as the days went on, I was like, wow, I'm getting up, I'm going to work, I'm coming home, being the best mother I can, being the best wife I can. There's really not time for much else. Cooking, cleaning, washing, helping with homework and all the other things. And I only have one child, but it was a lot with that job that I had at that time. It was extremely demanding. So trying to balance that with a home life was very, very challenging. So then I started paying more and more attention to it. What am I doing what do I want to do? I don't even know what I want to do because all I've done my entire life is work.
Right.
So then I started thinking, now what? So what does the next 10 years look like? And that was very frightening to me because I thought, this is it. There's nothing else. This is the way people live. I started looking at my friends and people at work. And I was like, everybody this way. So that was kind of very fearful for me.
So did you find that you were like in what we call the comfort zone, where just the routine, just doing things over and over again, and just there was no excitement to your life? Now at that time, okay, and then at that time, like, were you like, what was your disposition? Like, were you depressed, or you just like, it was just like, what was your disposition?
Yeah, so I didn't even think I was depressed. At first, I was like, this is just the way it is. But when I started really thinking about it, like really zoning in and thinking, well, geez, all I do is work, come home, cook, clean stuff for my son. Then I could feel myself falling into, I wouldn't say depression, but I was in deep thought about it. And I think the thing that really got me was I didn't know what to do about it. I just didn't know what to do. It was like, okay, I guess everybody lives this way. The people that don't are rich, or they're doing other things that maybe I'm not doing or want to do. So that was really hard. So then I went to work on, what do I like and what do I want to do? Oh my goodness, that was even more fearful. I don't even know what I want to do. I don't even know what I like to do. So that was a pivotal part in my life.
And so, like, walk us through the steps, like exactly what you did, because there's a lot of women out there. Like, I'm noticing, like, I was talking with another person the other day. I was talking with Tammy, and she mentioned the same thing. Like, a lot of us are going through depression and not even realizing at the time, because we, normally when we think of depression, we think of like on the scale, we think of like the really severe depressed person, where it's obvious that the person's depressed, but you really could be walking around in a depressed state and not even realize it until until after the fact, or until you actually realize.
That was me. And so how I knew that I was really in a depressing state was things started happening. Like, things were falling apart around me at work, and I'd always been the superstar at work. It was bad. I mean, I was no longer looked at as the good girl. I couldn't do anything right. I was borderline on probation, so I was working harder and harder and harder, and it just was never enough. My son had behavior problems, at least that's what I thought. When he was in school, I had issues in my marriage. I had issues with my siblings, with my family. I mean, I was a wreck. And so what started happening was it started showing in everything that I did. And so one night, how I got out of it was one day I actually had a cold, and I decided to stay home from work that next day. And I was really, really not wanting to do that because I could feel the work piling up at work. But I was like, nope, I'm going to stay home because I don't feel well. In the middle of the night, an infomercial came on for a workout. And I was like, wow, that actually looks kind of cool. It was kickboxing. I was like, that looks kind of cool, but I don't have time to do that. But it would just be kind of cool. So I bought it. It sat on the counter for like 3 or 4 months. And then one day I decided to open it and do it. And I felt very uncoordinated and didn't doing, but I was like, it made me feel good. It was almost like a drug, seriously like a drug, because I could zone out of the real world and really put things aside and do this workout. And then I started really getting into the music. And then that's really when it all started. I realized that the person who was doing that workout had a camp, and that camp was a bunch of, the majority of people were women. Mm-hmm. And I just by chance found that out, and I went to the camp, and that is when my entire life changed. That's when I knew how bad I really was, because now I'm in a room full of, I don't know, maybe about 450 women who were healthy. And I'm talking about mentally healthy. And that is when I looked at myself and said, wow, you're way worse off than you thought you were. And now this is God's way of telling you that you can change, you can do it, and you can take that step. And that's when I did.
Wow. I just was reflecting on some of the similarities between you and Tammy's story, because it's the same thing with her. She was, Tammy, Niecy doesn't know Tammy. And so, her situation about being a mom and also owning a business and also being married. And the same thing happened with her. Is what she said was that it was her sister that invited her to, I think it was a workshop or seminar, and then that's when she realized, again, being in the midst with all those in the environment that was different, with a bunch of people that was motivating and determined, and that's when she realized herself that it was, where the state that she was actually in. So there's a lot of similarities between the stories. So that's very, very interesting.
Yeah. It was actually a pivotal time in my life, and it was a turning point. And even to this day, the things that I do are really driven by the relationships that I have in that network. I actually met a lot of women there. It was in California that I went to this camp in California. And when I got there, I met women who actually live here in Washington. And so it was really nice to be able to connect with women who are doing positive things, but more so than that, I think it's way deeper than just doing things that are positive. It's really about feeling like you have purpose and empowering each other, feeling like you have more control over your life and your thoughts, and that is freedom, and it's peace. It really is.
So wait, take us back, because I know, like, for instance, it seems like it was a seamless process, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't. Take it back to when you actually found out about the camp, because just because you find out about a camp, what was going through your mind when you're like, okay, am I going to actually do this? And, what was the trepidation that was going through you when you were actually thinking about going to that camp?
That's actually a good question. So I was actually excited about it because I was like, a fitness camp. Wow. Now, I haven't heard anything like this. So now I have something to be excited about. And my son said to me, Mom, I want to go with you. And I said, okay, let's just make a little vacation out of it. And so I was excited to do something other than work, do something other than make everybody else a priority, because there was no pressure when I did the workouts. And now I have something to be excited about. So I got on the plane, I went. And I'll never forget this. We were standing in front of the hotel and people were coming in. They were getting out of their cars, coming in. And I looked at my son and he looked at me and he said, we're in over our heads. And he was right about that, because all of these people looked amazing. It wasn't that they looked amazing, like necessarily in shape, right, which we were, but you could just tell the way that they carried themselves. They were very confident, not cocky, confident. They were very sure of where they were going, and they were fit looking. And so I was like, okay, this isn't the kind of, I was thinking it was like all people that were just, putting on, a little spandex and just heading over to do a couple, workout routines. This was like, at that time, they had on belts that were all blinged out. And I mean, it was like really
Was that intimidating for you?
That was extremely intimidating for me. I mean, really bad. Everyone was very confident, and I did not have that yet at that point. Mm-hmm. So when I started looking, when they gave, it was just like camp, like when you're a little kid, they give you this little bag of goodies, and I opened it and I looked at the agenda, and my son said to me, oh, wow, they've got motivational lecturing. He was kind of going through, and I said, I'm not doing any of that. All I want to do is the workouts. And he said, you really need to do all of it. You really do. Like, really get into the experience. And at that time, well, I think he was like 17 at that point, that when we went there. But he was in my ear the entire time. It's like he was my coach. And as I walked in the room to where everybody was to work out, I just shook my head and I said, oh God, this is going to be interesting. But I didn't know anybody, so it was fine. As I started learning through the days, I was like, whoever put this on really got me. And I was like, they really got me, because I thought this was a fitness camp where we were just going to be here working out. But what it really was a personal development camp that had fitness as a part of it.
Right.
Huge. I walked away, and I know this sounds kind of cliche, I literally walked away a different person. I couldn't even believe who I was, because I had never heard those things before, like look in the mirror and say to yourself, you're number one, and feel it. Make yourself a priority without feeling guilty, and really starting to zero in. And as I look back on that, a lot of people probably would say, well, that's too self-indulgent, or that's cocky, or whatever you want to say. But I don't think we as women put ourselves first enough. And then when we hit a certain age, there's not much left for us. It's just not much left. So it was very good. It was a very, very interesting experience.
Now, when you were there, though, how were the people? Were they like, because it's one thing when there's people that are confident, and if you're if you're lacking that confidence, were you approaching people, talking to them, or were they approaching you? Like, what was the interaction with that? Like, how did that work with you? Because a lot of times people, what I'm saying, they get into a place, and if they're already, like, you're an extrovert, like I can just, you're, from what I know now, you're an extrovert. But at the time, even the extrovert can become shy and internal when you're in the midst of a sea of confidence people, and you don't feel that.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, a lot of people think I'm an extrovert, but I think it's called an intra-extrovert, because I have periods where I totally go silent and I go within.
Yeah, you do.
But the funny thing about it is, that's a great point that you bring up, because when I was there, I was an introvert, because I was like, what are they talking about? What is that they're doing? And what they did was they broke us up, just like in camp. They broke us up into these groups, and we were the hollow pink group. And so there was maybe about 6 or 7 women in the group, and they could tell that I was totally out of my comfort zone. All dancing, and they knew all the words to certain songs and certain dances. And I'll never forget this one girl come over to me, and she was like, here, come here. And she took me over to the corner, and she was like, this is how we're going to do this step. And that is exactly how people were there. They were very, very coddling. They were very coddling. They just had a camaraderie about them. So that helped me, because I'm telling you, if it was any other way, I'd have packed my stuff and I would have been gone. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And I got to see, even more than that, I got to see something else. Even if it was the worst experience ever, it was still something different. And I now had a story. I had something to tell. Whereas before, when I would go out, as couples, we'd go out or whatever, everybody had something to talk about. And all I could talk about was the company that I was working at and what we were doing, which no one understood that. And that was embarrassing to me. It really was, because I couldn't contribute much. Now I had something to contribute.
Got it. So what I'm hearing, because again, with working with a lot of women as far as coaching is concerned, it's very important to keep your identity of who you are. Like, a lot of times we get lost in being so-and-so's mom or so-and-so's wife, or involved in your career, where you really just totally lose who you are. So, can you talk on that? Like, particularly with, not just with you, but also with clients that you see. What are some of the tools that you recommend women to do so that they don't lose their identity, or if they've lost their identity, how to find it?
Yeah, that's a good one too. So I think the one thing, and I know everybody has their own response to this, but the biggest thing, and I talk to my clients about this all the time, is reading. And that's something that I picked up. I mean, obviously I could read, but I wasn't the type of person where I would pick up books and start reading them. If you even said that to me, I'd be like, what? Why? Why would I do that? I'm not ignorant. I can read, but I'm not going to pick up a book and read it. And that was one of the things that I learned, was that in order to find who you are, you have to have some type of knowledge in your brain that's different than what you already have, or the same knowledge, but you're thinking about it a little differently. And so that was a very powerful tool, was to be able to have certain books. Obviously, it's not everything that you read, but there were some really pointed books that I read that I was like, I have literally have been living under a rock. Are you freaking kidding? Where the hell have I been? Because I didn't know that all of that was going on in the world. And I hear that constantly. Niecy, nope, I'm not going to read. I'm sorry, I don't have time, and it makes me fall asleep, or whatever else. And once I get them to just enhance their thinking and adjust it just a little bit,
Right.
and take on reading something powerful and productive.
And I'm glad you said that, because, you know, in my mind, I can just kind of feel the audience saying, well, I'm reading a Harlequin romance, and I'm reading this and the other. So we're a little bit more clear on what we're talking about. Like, be a little bit more clear what you're talking about when you're saying reading. Like, what are the subject areas that you're reading? You know, it's not the Harlequin.
Correct. And I know everyone is probably going to expect me to say, you know, motivational books, or inspirational, or, you know, something to build your life and change your life. Those are really good. They really are. But there's other types of books, even history, what's going on, you know, some of the American history, Black history, whatever it is. They give you a different way of thinking. They really, really do. But there's a lot of books that I read that are really uplifting and very good as far as motivating me and keeping me on pace. One of them that I'm reading now is You're a Badass by, I don't know if you remember the author, but
oh gosh, if you haven't asked me, so, Jen.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I see the cover because it's the newest one out. The wealth one is green, but it's like Jen something.
Yeah.
Keep talking. I'll look it up because I have it. It's
So
on my audio, and also too, like, for instance, for those that don't want to start off, let's say, reading a book for whatever reason, because people talk about they don't have time to read. What about having your car, or turning your car into a university and getting audiobooks? I mean, have someone read to you. And think about the times that we spend in our car. Like, don't you? I know you do it, right, Niecy? Like when you're driving back and forth.
Yeah, and so that was the one thing that I said a lot of. I don't have time for all this. I just don't. You know, this is great and it sounds good on paper, but I don't have time. And I hear that constantly. But there was a lady who was in my class the other day, and she said to me, and I think I mentioned this on my Facebook Live, I don't know how in the world you do all the stuff that you do. And I said to her, if I did not do all of this, what would I be doing? And she said, what does that mean? I said, seriously, I'd come home, I'd sit on the sofa, I'd probably read a trashy magazine or something, who knows, talk to my girlfriends on the phone. None of that's pushing me forward.
Watch TV.
Yes, watch TV. And I think you didn't ask this, but one thing that I really want to stress to those that are watching or will be watching is, if the one thing that really got me to get on a different path is the fear of staying in the same place. The risk, the cost of staying in the same place is so high.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just not, because I don't want to see, I know if I'm doing that now and I multiply that by 10 years, that frightens me. And so
Wow.
that's what really keeps me going, is the fear of not doing the things that I know will move me forward.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because what we don't understand, like I used the analogy in one of my broadcasts that life is like a bicycle, right? When you're trying to balance on a bicycle, you'll be fine as long as you're moving forward, right? But when you're trying to balance your life and you're just staying still, you're going to find that you're shaky. It's not going to work. And so in your case, what you're saying is, if you don't have if you don't have something to look forward to, then all of a sudden it seems like things are just going awry and just wrong because you feel out of balance because you don't have anything to look forward to. It's just the same thing over and over again. It's a circular life, if you will. And again, looking back, can you imagine if you hadn't had that introspection at that point? Fast forward to 10 years, you probably would have been in the same situation. I wouldn't even know you.
Exactly. If not worse. I always say that to my clients. Take what you're doing today, multiply by 10 years. How do you feel? And if you feel good about that, okay, all right. But, and this was one of the posts that I did the other day, my greatest hero is me 10 years from now. And I really mean that. I really do. A lot of the things that I post on my page, I really work hard to think through them. Some I find to inspire other people, but it's also great reminders even for myself. It really is.
All right, I put your page up there, and it's basically Denise Moore Johnson. So if you're looking for Denise, to friend her on Facebook, go to Facebook and just look for Denise Moore Johnson. And Niecy, real quick, because we're gonna, I know you had a time frame. Can you talk to us a little bit about your Do Your Joy? I love that.
Oh yeah, so all of what I mentioned to you about finding a different path just for happiness, and it isn't even about being fitter or thinner or whatever. It really was about finding something different and growing in a different direction. And when I started building my own story around that, I started realizing, oh my God, this is such a joy. There's so much freedom in this, and there's so much peace. I really want to be able to share what I've learned and the things that I've done with other people. And so I started my own business, and it's called Do Your Joy. And I remember asking my sister, who I hope is watching, her name is Billy. I remember asking her one day, so I'm going to rebrand myself already for a few years. I'm going to rebrand myself. What should I call it? And she was like, I don't know. She's very creative. She said, I don't know, but I'll think about it. And her best friend were sitting on the steps one evening, drinking a glass of wine. And they were kind of going back and forth on names. And they said, oh, your initials are DYJ, so Denise Yvette Johnson. And that's where Do Your Joy came from my initials, actually.
Wow.
And it's really about people feeling really in their heart and soul, in the gut of their belly, that what they're doing is intentional and on purpose from their perspective. Right. They're not going with the flow. They're not waiting for other things to happen. They are spearheading what they want in their life. So that's where Do Your Joy came from. And my goal is to spread that as wide and as deep as I can.
All right. Well, good. So just to kind of recap, when we talked about building, finding your inner strength, can you just kind of recap of what you think people should do in order to cultivate their inner strength?
Yeah. So I think one thing is to really get real with yourself about where you are. Because a lot of times we don't. We just, we look at bits and pieces of our lives and say, yeah, I want to do that. And yeah, I probably should be doing that. But really sitting down and thinking holistically about where am I going and what am I doing and what do I want? And really mapping that out. And that's different for everybody. And then from there, just going to work on yourself. Like I talked about reading, really getting into learning more about yourself and getting around a different group of people.
Absolutely.
That help inspire you. That's huge. I just cannot say that enough. So I hope that's helpful.
It really was. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And like I said, I know this the time frame was important to you. So again, if you want to get in contact with Niecy, she does have her own coaching business. She is a personal development coach. You can find her at Denise Moore Johnson on Facebook. And I just want to again thank you guys for taking the time to watch this live broadcast, and also those that are watching the recording, because it's all about empowering women. Just want us to understand that we're helping each other, and the way to help each other is to share what we're going through. Don't hoard it. There's some gain in your pain. In other words, there's a reason why you're going through what you're going through, and the reason generally revolves around helping other people. well, you're not helping other people if you're hoarding it in. It's doing more damage to yourself than it is helping other people. And not only that, while you're helping other people, you're helping yourself. So again, that is the purpose of the series. I want to thank you for joining. Join me again tomorrow. We're going to actually I have another live broadcast tomorrow morning. It's going to be at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, and I'm going to have a Trevor Pace on. So it's going to be a male perspective. So it's going to be really, really neat. It's going to be an enjoyable broadcast. So join me tomorrow. But good night. And again, thank you so much, Niecy, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.